Good afternoon, everyone. At the first, allow me to introduce myself as the head of business for Covalensedigital Solutions in Africa, based in Johannesburg. And with me, I'm very happy to introduce my co-speaker, Ishari Siriwardene from Sri Lanka Telecom. Very happy to have her join me on this, what we hope will be an insightful session. At the starting point, let me just share my screen. Let me know once it's visible.
This station is visible.
All right. The topic of today's discussion will be about unlocking value. We've talked about different aspects of business. Today, we're talking about unlocking value because the world of digital is changing in different ways to different organizations, different industries, and telecoms is no exception. So we're going to walk through basically three key themes. And one will be, as with any business, customers, the ability to retain customers and grow your customer base is fundamental to any business. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. As we go further into digital, automation is critical to dealing with different aspects of business. But at the same time, we have to retain a personal touch with customers. That's the automation part we'll touch. And eventually, when you're talking value, what is value? How do you deal with it? Ultimately, it's connecting demand and supply in a way that is meaningful to both sides. So after that, we will go through the questions. I'm just setting a little context in terms of the customers first. See, I'm talking now a little bit about the telco space or the CSP space personally at the start. And the objective is, as we go from connectivity into full digital, there's a common understanding of what is starting to shape up as a platform economy. All of us are familiar with being able to use various kinds of platforms, whether it's in social media, in ride hailing, in lots of things are online today. And when we say platform, we are being inclusive of all kinds of platforms. But at the same time, how has this changed? And how is this affecting the telco or the CSP's ability to attract, retain, and grow the customer base? A simple example of, I'm using South Africa in this case as an example to show what a platform economy can do. Over the next 10 years, in just South Africa alone, it is projected that the platform economy is going to be around 90 billion further injection from where we are today. And these are already visible in various forms in the online space. However, what does this platform economy mean to telcos who have traditionally been focused on connectivity? And how do we then retain and grow customers? For this, I would like to now invite Ishari to share a little bit of her insights representing a major telecom operator in Asia, Sri Lanka Telecom. I would like Ishari to share some perspective on the challenge and how Sri Lanka Telecom is addressing this in a digital economy or a platform economy. Thank you, Ishari. Over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Seshan, and thank you very much for inviting me to share my experience with the team. I'm so happy to be, in the event and speaking alongside Seshan. Hi to everybody who has joined the call today. Like Seshan explained, I'm from Sri Lanka Telecom. I'm working in the digital transformation projects division in Sri Lanka Telecom. I head that division, where we were going through a major digital transformation, predominantly to overcome some of the challenges which we critically face as telcos in today's context. To take you through some of the challenges, the visible challenges everywhere in the telco world. So not only confined to Sri Lanka Telecom, but I would say, that all the telcos around the world are facing some of these common issues. One thing is the growth decline that we're facing, because mainly driven by the fact that the average revenue per user, the ARPU, is actually coming down, specifically from the traditional telco services like the voice, the data, the basic connectivity services that we have been offering. The customer revenues are obviously coming down. One of the reasons is that it's been commoditized. And so because of that, and also the price pressures that we have, the ARPUs are coming down, and the customers, of course, are also not that loyal to us. They can always switch partners and find alternative solutions from the competition that is available in the market. And also from an enterprise business perspective, again, you have a downward pressure on connectivity, and also again, due to the fact that it's commoditized and you have options available in the market. So obviously, although we don't talk about ARPU from an enterprise perspective, but still we see the traditional services, the revenues generated from these traditional services are coming down. So that's one of the challenges which have been posed. And because of that, we need to look at alternative solutions beyond connectivity. And also the competition is fierce nowadays. So, and the churn rates have all, on an average, from a global telco perspective, it lies around 50 to 25%. But in the recent past, from a Sri Lankan perspective, we went through a heavy economic recession, and there were a lot of tax pressures that were imposed by the government on communication services. So our churn rates actually even went slightly higher than this. Mobile company, because we are a fixed and a mobile joint operator, because we have two companies in our group, Sri Lanka Telecom and Mobitel. So actually our mobile churn rate went up to about 30%. Now it has been controlled, and even our fixed line churn rate went up to about 15%. So that was the figures from our company in the recent past. So churn rates are anyway at a high rate in average across all of the telcos. And above that, one good thing is that if you have digital channels introduced, and if you are delivering a digital experience, the good thing is that 8 out of 10 customers, they say, are willing to pay more if you deliver a better experience to the customers. So obviously, we need to look at avenues. We need to transform ourselves so that we can provide a better experience. And typically, the competition in any other industry would come from the same industry. But for us, it's not only from the telcos that we are getting the competition, but from the OTTs as well as the hyperscalers, and also some of the adjacent industries like banking sector, where people are competing for the wallet share. So you want to get the bigger portion out from the customer to your company, to your industry. So that's another type of competition that we are facing. And also the cost pressures that we are having, because we have been all throughout legacy for a very long period of time. And when we want to transform ourselves, obviously you have these cost pressures of complex billings, the legacy systems, and the time to market pressures that we have. So all of these adds up to provide a better service to the customer, which also have become a challenge. And also on the differentiation, I think, as I mentioned earlier, so if you're just providing pure connectivity services, obviously there is no differentiation because our product services have been commoditized. So if you're looking beyond connectivity to differentiate yourselves, then only that you would have be able to overcome the challenge. So that's kind of like the landscape in terms of the competition that we have to retain our customers as well as to grow our revenues. Over to you, Seshan.
Thanks, Ishari. I think the point from the understanding this challenge is critical, because if we go with the old ways of being able to retain or track customers, things are going to continue in that path. So going from there, Ishari, would you mind sharing a perspective of how you see this change in direction from it through a retention, creating more value? If you can just talk a little bit from a revenue perspective and the change in direction through digitalization.
Yeah, so this is actually from our annual reports, how the revenue has changed for our company, but it's more common to most telcos, I would say. So though we had incremental growth pre-COVID, and even during the early stages of COVID, because of this work from home and so many demands that came on the connectivity, the access, and having people connected even at home, our revenues were not that compromised. But then post-COVID, along with the economic recession that we faced, even globally, it's the same picture, but for Sri Lanka, it was quite severe. So we actually had a kind of a severe downturn in terms of the revenues. That is purely because of the traditional revenue streams that we were heavily dependent upon, like the connectivity services, the voice, the broadband. So actually our strategy for the upcoming years is through the transformation, as well as I think we will share one of the case studies which we have done in our Catalyst project, is to turn this around and grow the revenue. So which we will talk in a bit. But definitely the downward trend in terms of the revenues were mainly experienced because of the post-COVID economic impact that the country faced, and also the commoditization of the connectivity services. And for us specifically, some of the tax pressures also amounted to this declining, because the affordability of communication services came down as a whole in Sri Lanka. So that also really impacted our revenue, as well as customers kind of like downgrading and having churn rates at a high level during this period. Yeah.
Thanks. I think the key message from this section was about how you compete in this platform economy. I think we painted the picture of how the traditional sources of revenue operations has really created a certain challenge to sustainable business and growth and retaining customers. The fact that there is a platform economy that has come in, Ishari, I think you spoke about the competing platforms, whether it's OTT or other adjacent industries, banking and so forth, banks and so forth. So in this platform economy, what does a telco do? And I thought from a platform perspective, I thought I'd share a couple of perspectives. What you see on the left is a vertically integrated telco. So historically, telcos were the consolidators of everything and being able to offer whether it's a network, whether it's infrastructure, whether it's other related services, whatever they could compare to offer to the market, it was a vertically integrated telco. That means everything along the value chain was somehow brought into the telco from supply side to demand side. What really needs to happen in a platform economy, because we've seen this, how the OTTs kind of marginalize the telcos in the production of content and revenues generating from the content, and now the net neutrality issues that are coming up because the telco versus the platform players. Now, for us as telcos, to go and take advantage of this, the delayering is what is required. What does delayering? Instead of having a vertically integrated telco, the way you see on the left, you have to tilt to the right and start creating layers. Why is that important? In the past, only a telecom operator could give you big fat cables. Today, a Google could do it, a Facebook could do it, somebody else could do it. So there's an infrastructure layer that is, without a doubt, extremely important. But beyond that infrastructure, what next? What then? That's the innovation layer that allows you to bring the ecosystem together, because it's not just about the telco, the network and the data center or the cloud provider. It's about being able to bring this all together to create value. Now, value is dependent on the customer. They define what is value for themselves. And that is where the solution layer comes in place, because a hospital is going to have a very different definition of value. Just because technology is delivering it, the result is experienced by the hospital or a bank or anybody else for that matter, including us as individuals. So understanding that solution layer means understanding the customer. And in any business across time, understanding the customer has been important. So what happens when you do this delayering, you start separating the dependency or a tight coupling between the asset and the solution that needs to be given to create that value. So it's completely a new set of opportunities in the platform economy. Similarly, the challenge that comes when you have all these different pieces is that you need to put them together finally to be able to create that value. It's not just pieces by themselves. Those pieces need to come together in a meaningful way. And that's how value starts shifting from this single consolidated, tightly coupled offering to a loosely coupled, modular kind of solution that can be mixed and matched according to the demand, because the market, the technology, the economy, and your environment is changing all the time. So the value has then migrated from this vertical piece to these horizontal slices. Now, Ishari, just one thought on this. As part of this kind of direction, can you share any insight on how Sri Lanka Telecom is looking at some of these directional changes? Not necessarily all the details, just a question of your thoughts on how you're seeing the shift within your environment.
Yes, Seshan. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm overlooking the entire digital transformation program in Sri Lanka Telecom. And there are a couple of strategic initiatives that we have taken to tread along the shifting path. So one thing is this delayering. So we are actually seriously looking at delayering our business, and it might not be the common delayering that would happen in a common way, but something unique to us. But we are looking at it. So we actually these days we are preparing a blueprint as to what need to be delayered, how to delayer, and also identifying different cost elements of these different layers. Then only you can talk about how profitable each and every layer is going to be and how you're going to demarcate your businesses. So that's kind of like one of the priority projects that we're doing, and we are doing in accordance with the TM Forum's delayering architectures and the best practices that have been suggested by TM Forum. So that's one of the key projects. And also on the platform economy, I strongly believe telcos have a big role to play as a platform orchestrator. So we are also looking at implementing along with the catalyst, I think that we do, which we will be discussing in a bit, I guess. But beyond that, we are also looking at how can we get that or be a part of a platform business model and be kind of like the orchestrator of that particular model. So those two are like kind of like two priority projects that we are trying to implement under the digital transformation program. Yes, Ishan.
Great. Thank you very much, Ishari. I think from there, I'm going to talk about automation, because the natural process of automation deals with efficiency, speed, reducing costs. That's the implication of automation. But automation also implies that you start losing touch with humans and you're just talking to machines. I think all of us have felt it when we deal with the call center and then deal with press 1, press 2, press 3, and eventually keep listening to music. So there is always a flip side of automation. But the intention behind here is you cannot succeed, or none of us can succeed in a platform economy without that automation. So we put 4 thoughts here in terms of what does that operating model mean in a platform economy, because that operating model is going to guide the kind of automation we do. First is, in any case, you have to have a personalized value proposition. We spoke about solutions and understanding customers. The customer must find it simple to understand, easy to acquire, and the experience must be great. It's as simple as that, easy to say and difficult to do, but that's what needs to be done. Ecosystem, we've spoken about the delayering and how different pieces are coming together from unexpected quarters. It's not just a threat, it's an opportunity. So how do you bring this ecosystem together? You simply cannot do it without the necessary automation. The third part is infrastructure and platforms. Now, we've talked about all kinds of technology, the infrastructure layer, whether you're talking about 5G, fiber, 6G, different kinds of satellite, direct-to-device, end-to-end, non-terrestrial. Different kinds of technologies are there, the infrastructure and connectivity. But you also have the platform, which I spoke about earlier as the innovation layer. What does that platform bring together? How do you orchestrate across all these different pieces and create a single digital experience? And the third part is it's not enough for technology and integration and automation. Ultimately, the customer doesn't really need to know how many organizations are behind a particular experience. The experience is what that counts, which means all organizations today need to look at some form of creating an extended organization where you are able to clearly understand your role in the creation of value. How do you then deliver on that role through being able to serve the end customer in an exceptional way and create seamlessness in that experience? We are not there yet. And it's not only about the seamlessness of experience, but also the ability to collect money, because eventually that's going to be part of the entire cycle, concept to cash to care. Now, in creating that extended organization, automation is again key. So here, Ishari, I'm going to speak to you again and ask for your views on some of the challenges that you see in this automation.
Yes, Seshan. Automation is also one of the priorities that we are also looking at, but it also comes with a set of challenges. So some of these challenges includes actually the risk of autonomy, because when you try to automate actions which are critical on a national infrastructure, it could pose significant setbacks, both from a practicality standpoint. When you're actually going to do it, it's easier said than done. And also there are certain regulatory compliances that we need to meet also. There are we have acts for the personal data protection and so on and so forth. So we need to comply with all of those things when we try to automate it. So it has to be done in a careful way. mitigating some of the risks that we can envisage. And the second one is the cybersecurity concerns, because if you don't manage it correctly, then again, autonomous networks expand the attack surface, which can make them more vulnerable to cyber threats and potential violations to data protection and regulations. So that's type of, kind of like a second challenge that we're facing. And then thirdly, integrating advanced network infrastructure with legacy systems. For it could have problems in terms of interoperability, and automated actions are also something that we need to significantly look at, and they can't be underestimated. So we also recognize the importance of data driving insights and making decisions on the network. And the other one is the fragmented data landscape. So we have a lot of systems, different types of platforms, networks that we run. So, and the data that are generated from all of these are highly fragmented, and the accuracy shortfalls. So those are kind of like the difficulties and the challenges that we face when we try to automate. And above everything, I would say the most prominent issue that we're facing is the skill gap, because we have been a communication service provider, but now with softwareization, trying to automate, you need a lot of skills in on the software development, data analytics, AI. So staying ahead of the curve with technologies like AI and advanced network management, with a continued focus and governance for innovation and future readiness, it's important. But these are like, skill gap is one of the key challenges that we obviously face. And also in terms of the priority. So with all of these challenges, telcos are seriously looking at driving their automation agenda. So in terms of priorities, most telcos are looking at areas to automate in terms of the revenue generation areas, like managing the data from customers, generating insights to deliver a better customer experience, because that really drives the revenue for the telco. And also time to market. If you can bring in automation for product launching, introducing new products, so that the time to market can be increased, so which thereby again would contribute to a higher revenue. And also the other one is to what are the automations that can be done to manage costs. So a reduction in operating costs, whatever the endeavors that would help reduce the operating costs and through automation, those would be again a priority for the telcos. So these are like the top priorities that telcos have in their agenda when it comes to automation. Yes, Seshan.
Thanks, Ishari. And the three I see when I look at this, the top three priorities within the automation, drivers for automation, about the ability to manage data and operations and creating better customer experience, decrease the time to market and improve the time to revenue, and reducing of costs, which has your impact on margins, EBITDA, etc. If I look at those three, these are also natural use cases for two things. There's many things that we can talk about in automation, but these seem to be naturally lending themselves to AI and integration. And I think on that note, when we talk about that, maybe you can give a view of how you see AI and in terms of the telecommunications market and the broader platform economy as you see how it goes. So back to you, Shari.
Yeah, so I think these are again some of the statistics to back telcos' agenda for automation. So most telcos are looking at network optimization. That is to serve two purposes actually, because in one way you're reducing the cost of operation. You can sometimes get rid of these routine tasks performed by employees because you have optimized the network and you have automated certain functions, and you have predictive maintenance, so that you don't have to spend a lot of time and effort in solving problems. And at the same time, to offer a better experience to the customers, so that you can obviously improve the loyalty of the customers, the stickiness of the customers, because the customers are happy with you and with your network performance. So that's one of the priorities that most telcos are looking at. And I think we've looked at in the previous slide as well, where on the TM Forum survey done, again on the customer analytics and the insights, and how you would analyze the customer behavior so that you can help customers offer a personalized experience, personalized service to the customer. So obviously telcos are looking at putting an effort on that as well. And so one of the highest cost elements that most telcos have is on their support desks, the call centers. So they are trying to reduce that cost cost of operation by introducing virtual assistants through AI and all that, so that you can have a human-like interaction with the customers with an AI assistance. So those are like kind of like the three use cases most telcos are looking at. And again, for what McKinsey has done on a global survey on areas where you can reduce costs as well as increase revenues, the top three areas where you can generate more revenue in AI use cases is on the marketing and sales, as well as in the manufacturing sector, though it's not directly related to telcos, but that's where you can have a better revenue increase, and also on the service operations. Like I think, examples like virtual assistants and even some of the network operations automations, you would be able to improve the performance, and the cost also can be reduced in the same way. So those are like the areas that you'd be looking at in terms of the type of use cases that one company should consider in implementing AI. You have to look at what are the areas that would bring in more revenue, as well as also help us reduce the cost. So that's like you need to strike a balance between the two, I guess. Yes, Seshan.
Thanks, Shari. There's a couple of points I'd just like to add. I thought would be very relevant to based on this what you've been saying. So number one, on the AI side, there is a broad stream of commitment globally, and I think this is people on the call will know. Globally, there's a huge commitment to AI from all kinds of industries in different scenarios, testing out use cases. Now, as far as the telco is concerned, in the network operations space and the IT operations space, there's a fundamental challenge that is inherent from where telcos have come. So you have good network management tools, which tells you there's a fault at this location, the performance of this particular location, the site infrastructure is low. So you have those pieces along the network. But in a digital economy, you're actually talking about not just the network, you're talking about the cloud infrastructure, edge services or edge computing. You're talking about mobile, you're talking about IoT, you're talking about applications. All of them come together in a single piece experience by the customer, and there are service impact analysis elements. So what would happen is this single visibility is an area that is almost impossible for just any kind of traditional tools to be able to access. So where AI, one of the areas that would be is not an individual pillar of technology, but the ability to link that data around the technology sources, including applications, and the kind of service commitments that you've given to a customer, and then the ability to understand and gauge and predict that experience. So that is one aspect where automation, in the automation sphere, AI is going to play a critical role further down. But in addition to that, I'd like to talk about three things that are, you can't do this kind of automation without integration. And open APIs are a common theme today, whether it's on the TM forum, open APIs or other formats, the open API elements have started coming out. That integration is an important part. Now, in the telco world, the three initiatives, the Camara initiative on the network access, the Open Gateway initiative from the GSMA, and the TM Forum Open APIs. All three have complementary elements that actually set the platform for this kind of integration to go through, because they all focus on different aspects of the service provider business, and the ability for different ecosystem partners to take advantage of these APIs, network as a service, but then you can go and say with open APIs, I can bring applications into the mix, different kinds of vendors. As we go a little further into this webinar, we'll also share the case study of how we work together to bring elements of this in a prototype that we demonstrated. So if I go from there, from automation into value orchestration, all the technology pieces are good. Automation is good. We're talking about integration is good. AI is good. We're getting new ideas to get customers and retain them. But what is finally orchestration? After all, supply and demand has always existed, even before the days of modern technology. So what's so special about value orchestration? It's a symphony. And I say symphony because if I set the context this here, and Ishari can talk a little more about the detail, you look at the telco customers. Primarily, despite all the changes and coming in, the primary value proposition in some combination of voice, data, and content. Now, whatever that content could be, it could be entertainment, it could be business application. The value adds that come are essentially from third parties. They are not integrated offerings, which means the experience of the customer becomes very fragmented. The third part is it's not personalized. We all understand that there is an importance to standardization, which will allow you to have consistent quality and lower costs. But standardization at the expense of value to me, whether I'm an individual or a business, eventually adds no value to anybody. So this is a situation that customers often face. The product set is offered, as I said, it's commoditized, and there's a heavy dependence on external parties for innovation. And then the operations. I just mentioned about IT and network as separate entities, where the service is actually experienced as an integrated entity. So these kind of elements where you focus on platforms, how do you bring it all together? Customers, products, operations, and your internal organization. I think keeping this challenge in mind, Ishari, would you mind sharing a few thoughts from Sri Lanka Telecom's perspective?
Yes. So I think what is in this slide is exactly what we are also going through. I think, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of customers, we are always trying to provide the legacy connectivity services, the traditional ones, which again, as a product, they are commoditized. So you don't have any differentiation as such. And I think when we're trying to add value through third-party offerings, always there is a disconnect. How do you bill it? How do you bundle it? And then how do you settle the revenues which are coming in? Because we are right now, most telcos wouldn't be heavily investing on CapEx investments to bring in platforms. So they're always looking at alternative business models like revenue share or going on an OPEX model kind of a thing. So what really happens is, as though you bring in certain value additions to bundle with your connectivity to differentiate yourselves as opposed to your competition, what really happens is that it becomes a very tedious task internally, because how do you settle your partners? How do you really account for all of these? How do you calculate these revenues? So all of these has become a very big hassle to the telcos, because we have been operating in a very traditional way. So we don't have that platform mindset typically in a legacy telco operation, and also we don't have that digital operating mindset as well. So those are like the challenges that we as a company we are also facing. So I think it's common to most telcos around the world. And I think in terms of the operations, also network and IT is still separate even in our company, but we are looking at a common network IT architecture and an open API architecture plugged onto this. And now this AI element is also there, which is a focus in our company as well. So how do we bring in that AI piece into the whole common network ID architecture, and how do we expose some of these services even to the public wherever we can monetize them? So those things are something that we are also internally looking at. And also these have become kind of like challenges for us in terms of trying to orchestrate value and derive new revenue avenues beyond connectivity. Yeah, Seshan.
Thanks, Ishari. And I think what I'd like to use this opportunity to share is a case study of how Sri Lanka Telecom we worked with them in terms of creating a prototype of what we are discussing here, because ultimately the proof of the pudding is in the eating. So I'm going to talk about a prototype that we worked on together in June, where we demonstrated this in Copenhagen at the TM Forum's Digital Transformation World, where all the concepts that we have talked about, the platform economy, integration, ecosystem, delayering, and different types of personalized value propositions to different consumer segments or business segments. We brought all of this together. I'm going to take just 5 minutes on explaining what we put together. So what you see on the screen is really the platform. We called it Smart Hive XG, any generation. So it's not about first generation, fourth, fifth. The concepts can extend to any generation. So it was a Smart Hive, focusing on the ability to create value to the occupants of a smart city. So we didn't focus so much on the automation of traffic lights and utilities. What we focused was on the platform. The first thing we did was delayer it. So there's a network component. It can be 5G, it can be 4G, the connectivity element of it. The second thing we did was the operations of the platform. You see something called the digital operations fabric that deals with all the aspects of the operations of getting customers onboarded, giving them the certain offers, products, the ability to provide that end-to-end from the time you require a service to the time you bill and you're taken care of. So that's the operation side. The integration, the open APIs and the integration, we use the open API, TM Forum open API capability to bring that integration. And we'll talk about the who are the people we integrated with. The marketplace is the ability to onboard any ecosystem partner instead of the traditional procurement, RFP, supply chain type of route, based on governance procedures, because we did say governance and autonomy has its own challenges in a digital world. So on a governed structure, you can decide as a CSP to onboard different types of partners onto your marketplace and create an automated end-to-end chain where an end customer experiences. How we did this in the context of the experiment or the June in Copenhagen was we brought on a health tech platform that allows people to experience remote digital care based on a virtual waiting room, triaging the particular requirement and being able to find a doctor. It could be for chronic care, it could be for acute care, it could be for patient monitoring. The scenario doesn't matter. The health tech platform supports all of that. So what we did was we integrated this platform with the health tech platform and completely demonstrated the scenario where a patient could get onboarded, come through this platform with a telco subscription, with a telco bundle, and then able to experience the healthcare service by generating a call to the doctor. And the patient could then, and the doctor could exchange what they needed, and the service was then fulfilled and settled. We had a similar model for education where robotics could be delivered to schools, and the robot would then be able to provide supplementary education and digital skills to even a remote school. So this was done through a combination of this picture that you see. And of course, in the context of AI, our partners there then were able to demonstrate the concept of recommending a particular products based on the customer segment. The idea was to use AI to understand what type of customer is coming into the system, what are their particular demographics or profile, what could they possibly need, and make them the necessary recommendation. This, of course, would work in a B2C case, but more in a B2B or B2B2X case, there would be different uses of this kind of technology. So this is the model of the case used. Is there something you would like to share on this, Ishari, on this case study?
Yeah, Sishan. Now, I think this was the innovation that we did at Copenhagen for Digital Transformation World in 2024. But the actual use case, which was actually a Sri Lankan use case, because in Sri Lanka, there was this newly built city in Colombo, which is called the Port City, Colombo. And it was a greenfield deployment of 5G because as of now, we do not have 5G licenses being issued by our regulatory commission yet, but it's going to be like once it is issued, this would be one of the like a greenfield deployment of 5G infrastructure in this Port City. So Sri Lanka Telecom, along with the mobile company Mobitel, we actually planned a 5G network infrastructure there. And so we were looking at deploying these services in that particular city because that's going to be positioned as a smart city for Sri Lanka, and it would create a lot of economic activity for the country. So it's like a 2.7 square kilometer reclaimed land. You have a residential area, a marina, a central business district, a leisure area, and there are a lot of there's going to be an international hospital, an international school, and some of the business hub is going to be implemented there. So there's a lot of economic activity, and there'll be about 250,000 people who'll be living permanently, and a 2.5 million population who'll be going in and out of the city. So it's going to be positioned as a smart city. So we were looking at as a telco CSP, how we can really become the platform orchestrator of this platform, and also provide this platform so that any vertical smart city provider can come in and provide their services through this platform to the citizens. So this is something that is going to get implemented as a pilot in this particular city. So I think that was the initial opportunity that we had, but it went beyond that, because since this was a global project that we did along with global partners and certain other CSPs, because we had people like Botswana Telecom who are a part of this project. So I think even in the African region, there was this demand and inquiry which came up. So it was like a blueprint that we developed, as Seshan explained, an AI native, ODA compliant, compliant to TM Forum ecosystem standards, so which can be, picked up by any country, any city, and, customize it and tailor make it to the requirement of that particular city. But the important thing is the CSP would be playing the role of a platform orchestrator so that they can bring in and create this partner ecosystem depending on the requirement of the city and the context of the city, and deliver value end to end to all of the ecosystem partners. Yes, Ishan.
Actually, it's not over there, Ishari. I'd like you to continue about how you position the benefits, because we talked about finally understanding the customer and creating value for the customer. But the customer in this case is all the stakeholders. So if you don't mind sharing your views there.
Correct. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, so we were looking at the entire ecosystem in this platform economy. So CSP being the orchestrator, we were looking at a revenue growth for the CSP. If you remember, I initially started off with these declining revenue trends we were facing. So we were trying to switch that curve to an upward trend, and we were looking at some of the actual statistics that we can achieve by developing this platform and implementing this platform. So it was like we calculated so we can achieve about a 20% revenue growth in terms of revenue. And then I think now this project has a second phase, which is phase 2, where we're looking at a 30% EBITDA growth overall. So where we're looking at specifically in phase 2, how we can optimize the operational cost and reduce the OPEX by 5 to 10%. Some of the AI-enabled use cases will also be introduced to the platform so that you can achieve that. And also, every company is looking at achieving this ESG agenda. So that's one of the top priorities every company has. So we were looking at, delivering outcomes and ensuring that we meet the criteria of ESG as well. So that's from a CSP point of view. For the customers, the residents of this city, it could be B2B, B2C, or B2B2X for that matter. So it could be a one-stop shop for all of the city services, and it delivered through a trusted provider. And then, of course, since you have multiple players, multiple services, even if it's the same service, you can have multiple offerings so that the cost effectiveness could be improved. And also, using AI, we were looking at personalizing the offerings to the customers, and it also brings in the convenience. You don't have to go into different providers for different services. So all can be consumed, subscribed through a single platform. And government authorities or the city authority is also another key stakeholder. So we were looking at using the data generated, the transactions happening on the systems. We actually kind of developed a prototype dashboard for the city so that the city can know how the city operations are being performed. Initially, we were looking at education and healthcare. So how many citizens were served and how many were served, critical care has been delivered. So those type of statistics can also be made visible on the dashboard given to the city authorities, and we can help them make data-driven decision making, as well as you could help these government authorities to effectively and efficiently enforce the policies that they want to enforce across the city through this platform. And also the vertical partners like the education providers, the healthcare providers, etc., they also can have a revenue growth because services are exposed to the citizens and the customers through this platform. And this would be a new channel access to their services, and also since it's a marketplace, obviously you get this network effect, which would definitely help the vertical providers to get benefit and more sales through the network effect that we generate on the platform. Yeah, Seshan.
Thanks. Thank you, Ishari. I think I'd like to summarize, bring it all together in one view. What do we mean by digital capabilities where you can unlock that value? So first is on the business side, because that's where you unlock value. How do you serve customers better and create a better customer lifetime value for the organization? How do you bring partners on board if that process is not streamlined? So the capability associated with partner onboarding, settlement, and managing that infrastructure, service, consolidated service experience. Those are the areas. But on the technology domains, all these things that we spoke about, APIs, Kamara, Open Gateway, Open APIs, AI and ML, digital twins, edge computing, marketplace, all of these are technology components. But eventually, technology is used and consumed by people. So the associated human touch needs to be there, whether it's dealing with customers, dealing with employees, dealing with partners. a visibility into how these capabilities allow me to serve people better. That lens always and that culture always has to be there. So the capability to translate technology into human experience is a critical capability that has historically been missing in telcos. And that's a capability that is not as simply as saying as AI. It's something that's a part of culture and thinking. The last part is cost. Cost may not be a technological capability, but the ability to manage that cost and have visibility into it has become ultimately a lot more complex. So traditionally, you had systems of record, your ERP and your financial systems, but you need to have better processes and better lenses in place to manage and get visibility into these consolidated costs and impacts. So with that, let me summarize that as the closing message about what digital capabilities are. These will help unlock value. We've demonstrated certain elements of it earlier. We're intending to extend this further. But with that, Shravya, let me hand it back to you for questions.
Thank you so much, Seshan and Ishari, for the valuable insights which you delivered. Hi, team. If there are any questions, it's the time to ask the speakers. Or you can post those questions in the chat as well. Or you can unmute yourself and ask the question. Seshan, there are few questions in the Q&A.
Go right ahead. I'm just picking up the Q&A.
Yes, please.
Okay, I see. How are you leveraging automation across your operations, and what areas have shown the most significant impact? Ishari, would you like to take that?
Okay, so to be frank, so we've just started our journey in terms of automation, I would say. There are certain things that we have done manually, like, for example, now the quality checks that we do, we have managed to automate it to a certain degree, and we also have these virtual assistants helping us in terms of our customer support, because we wanted to reduce the cost of managing call centers and having a lot of staff on that. And we are also looking at empowering the customer to troubleshoot their faults on their own, so that the intervention that we would have in terms of sending out a person physically to the inside to resolve an issue, to reduce that, is something that we're looking at. So those are like, in terms of the operations, the quality part, the predictive maintenance part. So those are like some of the use cases that we're trying out at the moment. So some are at the pilot stage, and some like we're trying to scale it up. So it's we are at the early stages of our journey, but we have definitely started it.
And then maybe, since it's a continuum of that question, what challenges have you encountered in implementing the automation solutions?
I think some of the challenges I explained earlier, right? Having kind of like a very heterogeneous network platforms, because it comes from different vendors, different size and shapes, legacy, new. So that is one of the challenges, the interoperability, integrations. So that's one of the issues that we're having. And second thing, the very big one is the skill gap that we're having, acquiring talent, retaining talent. So we are actually looking at some of the alternatives, like, we have certain collaborations that we have with our internal local universities. We are recruiting some of these, undergraduates who would want to go on kind of like training, internships kind of things to get some of the work done. So it's quite challenging, because even in the recent skill report released by TM Forum, I was only worried because I thought it was something that is specific to Sri Lanka, but then globally it's the same situation everywhere. Acquiring talent, retaining talent has become a challenge for the CSPs, because we are not a typical software company, and so there are a lot of inherent challenges as telcos that we face, and operating legacy networks for some time has also given us some of the inherent challenges that we have. So to overcome that, we're looking at alternative ways of sourcing talent, and some we partner with companies also to do certain work for us. So I would say the two biggest challenges that we face is the interoperability issues that we have in a heterogeneous network and platforms, and also the skill gap that we have to do some of the work for us. Yeah.
Thanks, Ishari. I'd also just like to add one point to that automation. See, one aspect is data, because eventually the quality of data coming in over years and plugging in, a lot of decisions are based on that. So when you talk about automation, if not taken care of the data in whatever form, in terms of access to it, quality to it, protection to it, the data integrity, all of those elements, if that's not taken care of, it doesn't matter how much you automate, the experience is going to be worse. So in a number of my own activities with existing historical operators, it's been around the fact that this is not completely right. So a simple example: if you get a bill that you're not that's completely out of line with what you've been spending, the customer is upset. Multiply this many times over when you deal with an enterprise with thousands of line items in the invoicing. So I think the question is, when we talk about automation, the more you automate, the more you're dependent on the quality of the data. So this also leads me to the next question, and Ishari, I'm happy to get your views on it as well. But in terms of customer expectations, again, it leads through from the data. So if you don't understand customer behavior, because what they say on the phone is one thing, or in an email, which is of course important, but actually the usage of your services, the behavior, all of these aspects uh, are indicators to how the customer expectation is being met or not met. And depending on the combination of spend and usage behavior, there are models you can build on the customer behavior and then start. AI models do exist where you can start looking at, based on that particular behavior, and how do you actually then predict that this person or this customer is likely to churn. This is in the consumer side. On the, of course, on the enterprise side, it's a bigger story. I won't think I've left myself the time for that. But Ishari, in closing points on the AI side, question about expectation, would you like to share your thoughts?
Yeah, I think in terms of AI, I think that again, we have just started our AI journey. We have established a structure, tried to establish a virtual structure within our company and have a center of excellence team to look at what would be our priorities and what would be the strategy and vision for an AI driven initiatives. So that is something we have just started from our company standpoint. And we are looking at some of the use cases. We have looked at a few of the use cases which we have already rolled out in a pilot stage. And based on the success of it, we're trying to kind of roll it up and scale it up. I would say, so one of the things is like we are, quality checks, because some of these are, because from a fixed business point of view, our main source of revenue is the fiber to home services that we deliver to the customers. So we have contractors who have tied up with us to deliver these services to the end customer. So the quality checks are being done right now manually to see whether the fiber laying has been done in a proper way, and the naming, tagging, all of that is done in a way. So we're looking at automating some of these areas through computer vision and those kind of use cases to see whether we can automate and get rid of some of these manual work so that we can bring down the cost as well as improve the accuracy. And also on the point that you highlighted on data session, so that's also one of the critical issues that we are facing on the data quality. So we have KPIs to ensure that we have maintained data quality, and then we have a data warehouse, an ETL tool, and all of that in place as well in our company. And we do rigorous checks, and we recently started working on a proper data governance framework to say how we can probably share data, use data, and all that. So there are quite a lot of initiatives going on in this area. So I think so we do have ambitious plans in terms of transforming our company. In certain areas, we've just started our journey as well. Yeah.
One last question from my side, and I'm keeping respectful of everyone's time. There's a question that about which enterprise vertical has the potential, or verticals have the potential to be the highest growth market in the futuristic solutions compared beyond the traditional. So is it like automotive or manufacturing, connected factory, healthcare? What do you see from an enterprise vertical point of view, Shari?
You're right, Seshan. Actually, in Sri Lankan context also, we have been kind of like the market leader in the enterprise domain, and we have even through the COVID era, there were slight glitches. The churn rates are quietly less because I think 100% of our enterprise customers use our services because we have the largest fiber network in Sri Lanka, and we have two main data centers and some few small data centers as well. So customers look at Sri Lanka Telecom as their connectivity ICT service provider for most of their enterprise requirements and solutions. But the problem is like we have still not gone beyond connectivity. Our bread and butter has always been the connectivity and the infrastructure and the global services that we have, because we also own some of the submarine cables coming to Sri Lanka. So, but the attempt is to go beyond that and see whether we can really deliver to we have been delivering total solutions to our customers, partnering with different vertical partners and so on, but to strengthen that and how you can provide a digital experience to the customers, like these marketplace platform project that we're trying to do. So those are like the avenues that we're looking at, going beyond connectivity and strengthening the revenue avenues for on the enterprise segment.
Thanks, Ishari. Can I just add a closing point to that? See, my own thoughts in engaging with customers also is this: as every enterprise has to transform digitally, they have to understand their own operations and their own customers and decide what's the best way to deploy technology. But some of the pressing areas that we see, if I go back to the stakeholder view that we just did, was healthcare is a critical priority all over the world. It doesn't matter if you're a developed country or a developing country, the scale may vary, but elder care, patient care. So healthcare is definitely an area where value-added solutions, and different telcos have attempted it differently in different forms. So certainly there's the fleet management, tracking and transportation, certainly. So I think it's hard to gauge which has the most potential. I think it's the ability to understand the individual telco's context. For example, in Africa, healthcare may be a higher priority, while in Europe, connected cars may be self-driving cars may be a better priority. So I think it won't be fair to give a blanket statement. It's important to understand the country and the regional context in which the telco is operating, because even in a group, different countries within the group may have different priorities. So I think on the whole, there's a lot of hope for all of us. So I think we should examine each of these in the context of the individual telco we deal with. So with that, thanks a lot for your time, Ishari. I appreciate your insight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.